I do not believe that anything just happens accidentally. I believe things happen because men and women believe. In Jeremiah, the book of Jeremiah in the 20th chapter, I believe people have a right to hear God's word so they can make up their mind whether it's the way of life or death for them. Last evening, that production out there at Emporia at the college, we had senators and representatives there. Had a man from one of the networks, very prominent in one of the networks from New York there last night. You see, you set the word before people, and people make up their mind whether they want to believe it or whether they don't want to believe it. For those who believe it, they get the results of it. For those who do not believe, they get the consequences of unbelief. For those who believe, it's the way of life. For those who do not believe, it's the way of death. Here in the 20th chapter of the book of Jeremiah is a very apropos, very timely message. Now Pashur, the son of Immer the priest, who was also chief governor in the house of the Lord, heard that Jeremiah prophesied these things. The things he had heard Jeremiah prophesy were things that he didn't like. He didn't agree at all with Jeremiah. He thought Jeremiah was way out in left field, and everything that Jeremiah spoke was just a bunch of baloney. And he thought of him as just a prophet of doom, always against everything the governor was doing and the senators, representatives, and everybody else was doing. It is interesting to note that the word Pashur, his name, means most noble. Most noble. That's the meaning of the word Pashur. Now the most noble, the oldest son of Immer the priest. He was also chief governor in the house of the Lord. The word Lord, of course, is the word Jehovah. He was the chief governor. That means he was the head man in the temple area, as we would refer to it. He was the son of Immer. He was in that priestly line where they were responsible for the work in the temple area. And he was in that 16th, the priestly line of the sea. In 1 Chronicles, if you want to check it, it's in the book. 1 Chronicles, maybe this will be the best. You will have this. Do any of you have a center reference on this word Immer? You maybe have in your center reference 1 Chronicle. I just looked at mine. 24:14. That's where we want to go. This will be accurate here. 24, verse 14. 1 Chronicles 24, verse 14. The 15th, see, the 15th priestly line is Bilgah. The 16th to what? Immer. That is the one we're talking about in chapter 20. Pashur, the most noble son of Immer, that 16th priestly. You see, as the priests had charge every week, different order, 16th order, then at the feasts, when the 3 big feasts were held, all the 24 courses worked at the same time. But this is the 16th one. And I better tell you that this Pashur here is not the same Pashur as the one that's mentioned later in Jeremiah, if you read about it sometime. You get further on in Jeremiah, chapter or 2, further on, you'll read about Pashur again. Not the same one. Different Pashur, almost 15 years later than this record here. Now you got to remember that this fella is not a nobody. He sits in a position of very great authority, this Pashur. He's the son of a priest, right down the religious line. And he was the chief governor of the house of Jehovah, the temple. And he heard that Jeremiah prophesied these things. Then Pashur smote Jeremiah the prophet. Jeremiah didn't hurt anybody. He wasn't out stealing from people. He wasn't burning down their buildings. He wasn't walking around tearing up the campuses. And yet, this man of prestige and dignity and authority, who was highly respected by the vast majority of the people, smote Jeremiah the prophet. Now, just what hits your mind when you read a word like in the word Pashur smote Jeremiah? What hits your mind? Most likely you never gave it a thought. It's just a light word. Smote. You know, poof. No. Turn to Deuteronomy and show you what it means to be smote. Deuteronomy 25. Verse 3. In verse 2 it starts, if the wicked man be worthy to be beaten, that the judge shall cause him to lie down and to beat, and to be beaten before his face, according to his fault, by a certain number, 40 stripes he may give him, and not exceed, lest if he should exceed and beat him above these many stripes, then thy brother should seem vile unto thee, and then you're allowed to beat them. So they gave him 39 lashes with a whip. That's what verse 2 of Jeremiah 20 means. Then Pashur forced Jeremiah to lay down, and he whipped him 39 lashes with a whip. Not only that, he put him in stocks with his hands and his feet locked in. And they were in the high gate of Benjamin. The high gate of Benjamin was at the north side of the city. North side of the temple area that goes in the city. That's the gate of Benjamin, which was by the house, or in the area of the house of Jehovah. And he left him there all day so everybody could see how disgraced he was. What a terrible man Jeremiah was, that he first of all beat him 39 lashes, then he put him in stocks, so he made an example of him, so that nobody else would dare to believe what Jeremiah said, because if you believe what Jeremiah said, you were in bad company. And you'd get the same treatment as the master, Jeremiah. So just to keep people walking and keeping them sort of right on, he not only whipped him, but he put him in stocks as an example. So nobody would dare to listen to him or follow him or join him. Came to pass on the morrow, day later, that Pashur brought forth Jeremiah out of the stocks. Then said Jeremiah unto him, the Lord hath not called thy name noble, most noble. The Lord didn't call you Pashur, most noble. The Lord calls you but Magor Misabib, which means you cause fear in everybody. That's the meaning of it. Fear, in your center reference, you may have fear round about. You cause people to fear. Fear round about. The Lord didn't make you the most noble. That's not your name as far as God is concerned. Your name is fear all around. Took a lot of courage to say this to a man in that position after he had him beaten and put in stocks, releases him, and right back with the greatness of the truth of God's Word. Would you have had that much believing? Verse 4. For thus saith the Lord, behold, I'll make thee a terror to thyself. The word terror is, I'll make you fear round about yourself. and to all thy what? Friends. And they shall fall by the sword of their enemies, and thine eyes shall behold it. And I'll give all Judah into the hand of the king of Babylon, and he shall carry them away, carry them captive into Babylon, and shall slay them with the sword. Moreover, I will deliver all the strength of this city, that means all the manpower, and all the laborers thereof, and all the precious things, valuables, all the treasures of the kings of Judah will I give into the hand of their enemies, who shall spoil them and take them and carry them to Babylon. Not because it was God's will this should happen to Judah, but because men willed for it to happen to Judah. They, by their unbelief, they, by their rejection of God, they, by the way they treated God because of God's people. When they beat Jeremiah, they were beating God. God is spirit. I know that. But Jeremiah was working for God. Jeremiah represented God upon earth. He was a prophet. And when they began beating him, it's like beating on God. Man can do a lot of things, but there's one thing he can't do, is beat up on God. It looks that way at times. Oh, baby, don't fool me. I know it does. Look that way here. Old Pashur and that whole gang were in absolute control. Whenever they wanted to beat a man, call him in, throw him in prison, do anything, they had the power. Reminds me of another man in the New Testament. Had letters of authority from the top brass to go to Damascus, remember? But there always comes a time that that word will prevail. And the prophet looks this man straight in the eye and he said, look, you can kill me, you can put me in stocks, you can beat me, that's okay, but I want to tell you something. All Judah's gone down the drain on account of you and the unbelief of the people.